G2 were down 2 maps. The first 2 maps were crazy. G2 absolutely shit on them for the next 3 maps in a row. And then they win. They're popping off. They look crazy. They're going wild, etc., etc. And crucial to note, wait there, we'll just pause it. Oh, there, their coach runs on to give them a cuddle, give them a big group hug with their coach. Wouldn't have happened the other way around. If Shopify Rebellion had won, wouldn't have happened. They wouldn't have had their coach run on, would they? A coach, you say? Interesting. Who would play at a top level in a grand final without a coach? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Well, the reason is, of course, that yesterday there was this competitive ruling against Robwiz, who's a legend of the scene. But yeah, he did a middle finger. I should have really got the clip up of him doing a middle finger or whatever. But yeah, Shopify Rebellion beat their longtime rivals, Cloud9 White. And Cloud9 love to talk some shit. Shopify have been on the back end of it the entire time. So they're pumped up and they decide, we'll fucking flip them the bird. Whoa. Go crazy to them, that kind of thing. And while they must have thought that it was not going to really have too many consequences, they got their coach suspended for the grand finals, which is bonkers, I think. It's kind of bonkers. But I did want to look through some of the responses. I'm just going to refresh the page as well. Although this will put different responses at the top, so I don't know why I'm doing this. But anyway, there was a response from Def that I wanted to look at. Here it is. So Def had a response that was fairly early on, like immediately after the ruling was made. So it might, he might not stand by it now, but he said this ruling would be fine if it wasn't a grand finals match for these girls. A fine would be enough punishment in this case. Such a shame, really. I agree with the second sentence. I do think a fine would be enough punishment in this case, but I don't think that the ruling should be to do with whether or not it's a grand finals match at all, right? Like, that's the entire point of these rulings, actually. And the whole thing that I've stressed whenever I'm talking about Riot's rulings in Valorant is that they just need to have some consistency and they need to follow the rule book, and they don't. The people with the least regard for the rule book appear to be the ones that fucking wrote it, or at least enforcing it, because I swear that it never gets followed. It's absolutely mad. What's genuinely the difference between the coach putting up the middle finger versus FNS yelling and calling the other team fucking shit all game? I would say no difference particularly. I think the difference maybe being that it gets caught on camera. The difference maybe being that they don't, they're not, the players don't know exactly when the producers are going into comms, so they can't be held liable for everything they say during comms. Listen, I don't fucking know. I think it's nonsense. So this competitive ruling to me is another flagrant example of Riot really getting it wrong. So the rule that they talk about is this one. It's in the global competition rule. It's this one, 7.1.2. It's in the code of conduct. Your classic stuff. You must be nice. Yada, yada, yada. 7.1.2, high standards. All team members and the teams must observe the highest standards of professional integrity and good sportsmanship at all times. I mean, again, could be used to stop FNS calling people shit. Could be used to stop, Nookie when he first pulled his middle finger out in an online game, but none of those have been enforced, and so there hasn't really been a reasonable precedent set for suspending a coach for a game. Would they do that if it was a player? I mean, that's just madness, isn't it? So anyway, there's it says there will be consequences for this kind of stuff. If you scroll down to, this is the global competitions rules, by the way. If you scroll down to 8.3, it says, if you violated the policy, then you... Well, I mean, first of all, it says that you're subject to demerit, which is you take away a portion of the prize pool. But the other sanctions part is that in addition to the demerits discussed above, any or all of the following disciplinary actions may be awarded. So they really don't say, like, what really corresponds to what in this document at all. You might get a written warning, you might get a game forfeited, you might get the tournament forfeited, you might get banned, suspended, disqualified. Obviously, you assume that they're going to dole those out on a somewhat proportional basis. But there is also another piece of documentation which that somebody on Reddit I had a Reddit post about it, which is the Game Changers rule set. So this is the Game Changers Championship rules, specifically for the tournament that they were playing in. And so you would expect these more specific rulings to supersede and be used as a guideline for how you would actually use these things, like the demerits, like the bans, suspensions, disqualifications, whatever. So it says here, event conduct disciplinary procedures, and this isn't the rule that they cited, right? Because they cite the rule that you broke, but this is a ruling that should be guiding how they apply their disciplinary actions. And it says, you know, yada yada. Really, this one's the one that's important, this discipline escalation. Discipline for event misconduct will be tracked for each respective team and team member. So for Rob Wiz, if he had no prior warnings, he should have just been given, you know, the first one is a warning. Second one, $1,000 base fine. Then 2 times the base fine, 3 times the base fine, and loss of a timeout. I mean, where is the suspension? And then here it is for flagrant misconduct. So not only is this like, according to this rule set, not only is flipping a finger at an opponent like a misconduct, it's a flagrant misconduct, and it's a level 2 flagrant misconduct, because they get you know, Rob Wiz just went straight to fucking match suspension. I think it said he also got a fine, right? So he's been fined and he got a match suspension too. So it's just, to me, a bit absurd that they leapt to this so quickly. And if you want to look at, for example, so I saw some people actually saying stuff like, and this seems quite reasonable, but I don't really agree with it, because if you remember back to when we were talking on Platchet about a lot of the drama within the Game Changers scene, Kurt made a really good point where he was saying, all of the fucking drama in Game Changers is caused by the men in Game Changers. It's absurd. You know, like there was the coach that was flipping his dick out on a Discord call. There was the man pretending to be non-binary, and then was it cheating as well in the game or something? I can't even remember the details at this point. And then this, of course, also Rob Wiz, you know? So, but and I saw some other people responding to these kind of things. I think there was some responses to Barla's where Barla said there's been content produced that encourages behavior. And what Barla meant was like the trash talking stuff, and like the idea that you should be out there talking your shit, and like the banter between the two teams, that kind of thing. I think it was from KP's video that they made, he said. But some people responded to Barla and were like, well, you know, you're not being encouraged for a man to take the spotlight away and like be disrespectful to the women that are playing. It's supposed to be somewhat of a, you know, not safe space, but like a space that's taken itself out from the wider scene with all of its problems, and trying to create a place where the players feel really comfortable. But I don't really think that that's a valid argument in this case, because it feels to me too much like coddling. If you're trying to construct a tournament circuit that's so protective to the point where you must come down incredibly heavily on someone flipping off their opponent, that to me is like wrapping these players up in in cotton wool, and it's not even what the players want either. So I think, you know, this tweet from Mel, it wasn't instigated by Cloud9. They were just talking to Rob about the clip earlier, saying it was funny and that there was no bad blood. You know, the players are not asking to be protected from the disrespect or whatever. Some players in Game Changers have that kind of perspective. I'm not saying that it's a complete, you know, across the board opinion, but in this case, the team gives it and is quite happy to take it as well. And if you look at times where it's happened in the past, listen, if you want to go back to the first time I ever saw someone get punished for this stuff in esports, it's probably happened before this, but a Prophet, I think someone responded to this. There it is. Fucking Prophet in the Overwatch League. When the Overwatch League was at its peak, we must breed traditional sports and not allow this stuff on television. And Prophet, oh, by the way, didn't even think that his camera was live. He was just doing this because his coach could see his camera. Prophet just flipped off his coach via the camera that happened to be on, caught on the main camera. He got a $1,000 fine. Even at the time, people were saying, that's a bit heavy-handed, you know, $1,000 for that. But then also recently, The Overwatch League just doesn't give a shit anymore. The Overwatch League does not give a fuck. People just flipping each other off all over the place. These are the profile pictures for the fucking teams. The Overwatch League doesn't care. Shit like this has been happening in Fortnite. They don't care. Nookie did it in an online game. Nobody cared. Durka did it in an online game, and Boaster did it back to Nookie, I think, in an online game. Boaster did it to the camera at LAN. Now, this is the closest thing you can get to as a precedent, right? Boaster flipped off a cameraman for like a second while laughing. It wasn't to an opponent, but it was caught on camera. And I guess you could say it's disrespectful. I guess the worst case scenario would be that you interpret it as he's flipping off the fans and being disrespectful to them. He got a £500 fine. Probably $500 actually, but I think he told me it was £500. Anyway, he got a small fine that isn't even listed in the rules, right? It wouldn't be listed in those rules though, because we were looking at the game changes rules. But anyway, he got a fine that wasn't even $1,000. And then Rob does it, suspended for a match. I think it's quite absurd, honestly. I think it's a poor ruling. And it highlights again the fact that there are multiple problems with administration in Valorant, one of which is clear rules. But in this case, it seems like the rule set covers it anyway. And also, if we want to go down the tangent of should this even be, should you even stop people from being disrespectful or whatever at the end of a match or stuff like that? A lot of traditional sports have rules about being disrespectful to your opponent, right? This isn't just an esports thing. This isn't just a Valorant being soft kind of thing. Like football, actually both types of football, whether you're in Europe or actually wherever else in the world, or whether you're in North America, both types of football have rules about being disrespectful during celebrations, taking too long in celebrations. You know, like the soccer football has rules about taking your top off and that kind of stuff, even though it's not. I mean, it is. The reason that the rule was put in place is because it's disrespectful in Islamic countries. So that, you know, there are lots of rules about stuff like that. So it makes sense to have rules in place. But these rules were in place and they just weren't followed. And it didn't set a precedent. And it doesn't make sense to make it harsher in this instance because you don't want to coddle them anyway. It's just nonsense, man. It's just fucking nonsense. So I want to leave you all with this. And Sliggy and Barlow have hit the raids as well. So I think it's the perfect time. This I think just sums everything up perfectly, doesn't it? It's just so good. It's just so good. Boaster is legitimately the greatest content creator in Valorant. Just the setup for it. The like 5-second setup to hit with the fucking music coming in. I don't know where he finds all of these things. He's a legend. He's a fucking legend, honestly. So, yeah, I think it's another really bad example of poor rules being applied, or decent rules being applied in a poor way, actually, in this instance. And, you know, did it make a difference? Who knows? But I don't know. It didn't feel like it made a difference in the game. I think the players psychologically will have felt like it made a difference, though.